Maximize cloud efficiency with Do It, the trusted partner in multi-cloud management for thousands of companies worldwide. Visit doit.com. That's DOIT.com. Do It, your cloud simplified.
Packet pushers.
Welcome, digital travelers, to the Day 2 DevOps podcast, where the DevOps is in the details. I'm Kyler Middleton, and on Day 2 DevOps, we explore those details and how you can learn from the mistakes of others and build a solid DevOps, and now AI, practice on day one and beyond. With me on this journey of learning and doing is my co-host, Ned Bellavance. Hi, Ned.
Hey, Kyler. So what's on the agenda for today?
Today, we are talking with Hannah Foxwell, who is organizing the AI for the Rest of Us conference. Hannah is well known in the DevOps community with over a decade of experience in platform engineering. Hannah Foxwell has also advocated for the human aspects of technology transformation and evolution. Hannah now works as an independent advisor, writer, and creator at the intersection of platform engineering, security, and notably for today, AI. Ned, what are your favorite parts of the talk today? Because I loved it.
It was fascinating. And one of the big things was the fact that AI terminology is just all over the place. It's really hard to pin down exactly what people mean when they use some of the terms. And so that's part of what the conference is meant to clarify. It's also hard to know where to start. And Hannah's looking for sort of the Goldilocks zone of just right for an AI conference. And lastly, we talked about how AI at this point is not optional. You kind of have to get involved. And what better way to do that than to go to a conference, right? So without further ado, let's talk about bringing AI to everyone with our guest, Hannah Foxwell.
All right, Hannah, thank you so much for joining us on Day 2 DevOps. This is so exciting to have you here. And you are organizing a conference that's focused on AI for all of us. And clearly that's because you know the most about AI in the whole world, right? So what's your history with AI? How did you come to this topic?
No, absolutely not. It's quite the opposite. So I started trying to teach myself a little bit more about AI just earlier this year. It literally was March, April time that I was like, this AI thing is everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. I want to get into it. I want to find out what's going on. And so I went to a couple of talks at a conference, and I was sat there and I was kind of Googling words that I didn't understand. I mean, it's easy to say now, like, how could you have missed all of this? How could you have missed ChatGPT? How could you have missed things like inference? I was like, I literally had to search, what does inference mean? Because it was a word that was being used so casually, like everybody should know. And so I was like, wow, I have a lot to learn. And it was a little bit of a humbling experience. I was like, I've been in tech for 15 years and I can't speak this language. I don't know how to talk to people about AI. And so I started trying to teach myself. I sort of came up short. I was really struggling to find very easy to digest content that just would help me get started. There's lots of marketing. Let's be honest, there is no shortage of content about AI, and there's no shortage of opinion about AI. There's also the very technical and academic kind of writing about AI. If you want to go deep, you can go deep. But I'm like, I just want to learn how to talk about AI. I want to learn what it's good for and what it's not good for. I want to be able to have a better conversation about AI. And so, yeah, like this was the little light bulb moment that I had, which was, if me, like someone who is technical and has worked in tech, is struggling to navigate this new domain, maybe I'm not on my own. Maybe there are a lot of us who are feeling the FOMO, who are worried about getting left behind, and who need to be really signposted to where are the best places to learn about this? How do we all like embrace this sort of transformation that's happening to all of our jobs and all of our businesses?
When you say you're technical, what is your background outside of AI? Have you been an engineer or a project manager? What have you done for the rest of your career?
So I've been really involved in the DevOps community for a long, long time. And so that's looked like many things. I ran a consultancy for a while in the early days of infrastructure as code. I then was the director of platform engineering. I did that at a company called Pivotal, which was then acquired by VMware. So my team were building cloud native platforms with Cloud Foundry and with Kubernetes. And so I've sort of been in leadership roles in platform engineering for quite a long time. time. More recently, my career took a detour into cybersecurity, where I was product director for Sneak Container. So really looking at tools that help developers secure their code bases. So yeah, my career has not been in AI at all. Like, this is me taking my first baby steps into it and trying to take a few people along on this journey with me.
This is a fantastic baby step. Baby step number 2 or baby step number 3, I'm going to throw a conference.
Why not get loads of experts together to teach me AI and invite a load of people to join me? That seems like it might be a really good way for us all to learn. At the time I did it, like, I did a amount of research, and there were no AI conferences in London in the autumn. And I was like, okay, brilliant. Like, there seems like there's a gap here, which I can take advantage of. It also felt like there were a couple of different flavors of AI conferences. Again, there were the very sort of like enterprise transformation, and you have to say it in that voice. And you also have to have like about $20 million in your back pocket if you want an enterprise transformation. But like at the other end of the spectrum, there's very academic and engineering centric. And I wouldn't be interested in attending either of those type of events. And so that's why I thought maybe there is a gap here for people like me to build a community where we can learn about AI together.
I'm curious, what do you feel the target audience is for your conference? Because you said it's not those giant enterprise folks and like the thought leadership people. And it's also not like maybe the computer scientists and the machine learning experts that are down in the depths and the bowels of these algorithms. So who's your like ideal conference attendee?
Oh, you know what? There genuinely is something for everyone. So even like the transformation folks will learn something from this, because what I've found in a lot of conversations, I've been having conversations with like smaller boutique consultancies this week, and they've got CEOs going to them and saying, help me with my AI strategy. And they go, okay, brilliant. What problem are you trying to solve? They're like, we don't know. Like, we don't know what problem we're trying to solve. And so there's this desire, and there's this investment, and there's this want to get the benefits from some of these AI tools, but no one knows where to start. And so I would say it's as relevant for a person who works in marketing to learn how to scale themselves and how to do more and how to leverage the latest tools, as it is a CEO who's like, where do I place my bets? I want to leverage AI. I want to be more efficient. I want to incorporate it into better product experiences. I want to do more with my data. Like, there is something for everybody at all levels at this event. And yeah, it's 2 days, 6 tracks. Day 1 is focused on really grounding everyone in a shared language and a shared terminology around AI, so that we can then use that shared understanding to build on that and get much more practical and actionable on day 2. So day 1, you'll have things like explainers about how LLMs work. How do you write a good prompt? What tools are available? What's the difference between those tools? You'll also have talks about actually how it's changing the face of software development. There's a track on developer experience, and then there's a real world stories track. So actually, you know, day 1, like, let's get inspired. Let's figure out what this technology can do for us. And then day 2 is much more actionable. It's AI strategy. It is responsible AI. How do we prevent some of the unintended consequences that can happen when you have non-deterministic systems and you put those in front of your customers? And then we'll also be talking about me as an individual. So day 2, we can get very practical about how do I leverage AI myself to do what I do better, or to do things that I've never done before where I'm a novice, and how can AI help me get started?
So you've been surveying the AI landscape for several months now. You've been ingesting all this different marketing information that may or may not be true in some cases, and also some of the more useful components as well. Based off of all of that, and the fact you're putting on an AI conference, would you consider yourself an AI optimist, a pessimist, or somewhere in between?
You know, a lot of people have asked me this because I keep talking about AI. So you would assume that I'm an optimist. I like to think I'm somewhere in between. I like to think I'm a realist. And the reason that I can't stop talking about AI is because I don't think it's optional. I think when you consider what we can do with this technology today, the price that you can do it at as well. That's a big factor. Just a few years ago, you needed billions of dollars in the bank to be able to consider using machine learning, using deep learning, building LLMs. You can now go and download a fully configured large language model from the internet for free. They're open. Like, this technology has never been more accessible, whether it be through a UI, through an API, through some of the SaaS providers, or through downloading these open models. The benefits of implementing this technology really can't be ignored. And I think anyone that does ignore it is kind of in danger of being left behind. It's kind of like those early days of DevOps. This is how I compare it. It was like we were seeing what the big tech companies were doing, and they were doing software delivery different, and they were doing it better, and they were thinking about it in a different way to how we were traditionally thinking about it. And we all wanted a bit of that goodness, and we didn't really know where to start. And I think that's where we are. I think there's going to be some really intense FOMO over the next few years. We're going to have a lot of people who say that they have an absolutely standout AI strategy, but it will be happening in pockets within their organization, and it will take a while for it to ripple out to everybody. But I don't think we get an opt-out. It's here and it's not going anywhere. And it's just a matter of time before you have to figure it out for yourself, both as an employee, how you do your job better with these tools, but also for likes of us in tech. What does it mean for the platforms I'm building? What does it mean for the software I'm writing? What does it mean for the cybersecurity professionals? A lot of these people need to be wrestling with these questions today, actually, because the technology is already here.
I love that response. In particular, AI is not optional. It is coming.
Honestly, I know it is. And I was at dinner the other night with a load of tech friends, and someone was just like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about AI." And I'm just like, I get it. I get it. You don't want to talk about AI. It's like being stuffed down your throat all day, every day. Every company has rebranded themselves as an AI company, but it's because there is incredible opportunity here. There really is a lot of benefit that we can get from using these technologies, but we have to do it wisely. I do not want to hear about how you can have a conversation with your travel and expenses policy using an LLM. I do not want to hear that story. That's not a problem that needed to be fixed urgently. I want to hear about the people with, learning difficulties or dyslexia who are using it to actually gain confidence and creativity in the workplace, how it may help them get back into a workplace and open doors for them. I want to hear those stories about how these tools are transforming people's lives.
I feel like part of the AI exhaustion, can we call it that?
Yes.
Was the fact it's not just a internal tech thing that we're all dealing with in our inner circle. When virtualization became a thing, my mom doesn't know what virtualization is and she doesn't care, but she's heard about AI. You couldn't watch the Olympics and not hear about AI 70 billion times. So I'm not only getting the AI conversation from my tech friends, I'm getting it from my family and regular friends as well. It does make me feel a little exhausted inside.
It's just hard to speak on it. I think, like you said, it's hard to have the terminology. I'm either seeing folks that have very basic content of you need to create an account with ChatGPT, and here's how in order to type the commands. Or it's the temperature of the model varies based on the context of the data structure. And it's I don't understand either of those. I want the middle. I want the middle where I can speak intelligently about it as an engineer. And I'm not there yet. I have that FOMO today.
Yeah, no, unless you've actually been working in machine learning or one of the other AI systems, or you're actually in one of these large companies that's invested the millions and millions and billions that it takes to build this bleeding edge technology, then you won't have been using it. And you can't be expected to be an expert, but it's creeping in very quickly. If it's going to solve a business problem, if it's going to solve a problem for your users, then these are just going to become kind of commoditized components of our software systems. But we need to treat them differently. It's not what I call simple software, where you can look at the code and go, here's the instruction that the code is running through. This is what the code is trying to do. You can't look at it in that way. And so we need a different way of thinking about quality. We need a different way of thinking about user experience, about reliability even, when you think about SRE and how you test that a system is doing what it needs to for its users, and you try and do that in like a implementation agnostic way, that's the sort of thinking we need with AI. How can we test that the user is achieving what they came to achieve with this system when, the outputs can vary from one day to the next as it learns how to do things better?
It's kind of the antithesis of what InfoSec teams and SRE teams want. They want things to, even if they fail in a systemic, predictable way. And these AIs often don't. Every time they are called, they sometimes have a different answer. And that means it just has limitations for how it can be involved in some things. Like if it cannot have a predictable input and a predictable output, then it just can't be used in some places of your software development lifecycle, of your product flow, of your data transformations. And I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I know that I am scared of it. Because it doesn't work like code. I'm good at code. I'm not good at this like thing that changes all the time.
Yeah, but I think what we're coming into now is like, we're definitely in an age of experimentation. It's a great time for experimentation because, like I said, there's investment. People want the benefits that it will bring them. And so I think what we'll find is, there's evolving architectures, evolving engineering practices, a new toolkit that we need in our back pocket as people in technology to actually put the right guardrails around these systems so that you don't have those unintended consequences. And I say that like, I do not have answers. Like nobody has these answers yet. We're going to learn about this together. That's the exciting thing. And that's why I think when you're going through a kind of a technology transformation, I don't like the T word, but it is a sort of transformational period. That's where community is really important, and learning from each other. Because, if we experiment in our silos and we don't share our knowledge, then it's just going to take so much longer to get better at this.
I think Ned and I are big fans of that. Like, as evidenced by the podcast, it's as much as we can make data and information and knowledge available and socialized, like it lifts all the boats. I love that.
And so you decided to put on a conference. That seems like a fairly major undertaking, but it's okay because you've put on like a ton of conferences before, right, Hannah?
Actually, that's the one area where I do have experience. So I'm not an
good.
AI expert, but I do know how to run a bloody good conference. And so I've been running DevOps Days London since 2017. And wow. I'm incredibly proud of that event. We've got an incredible DevOps community in London. We bring everyone together once a year. It's a fabulous event. Our next event is September this year. That's 25th and 26th. It does not compete at all with AI for the Rest of Us, which is my other conference, my AI conference. DevOps Days is obviously, it's run by the community for the community. And we've got some amazing speakers this year, some of them speaking about AI.
Naturally, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've put on lots of conferences, but they're in the more traditional like DevOps and SDLC and software. Has that been different than organizing this conference focused around AI? Has it been harder to find experts or maybe experts that can sort of explain this stuff in human language? Like we talked about, that's kind of a gap right now in written materials that are accessible to people.
So there's a few things I've done. I have been networking my off. Let's be honest.
And that's how we found you. By the way, we found you on LinkedIn networking. You networked with us.
Yep. So I've been taking every phone call, every intro, every referral, and I've been doing like some thorough research about who's got some great stories to tell, who's having the best thoughts on this, who's done some of that experimentation that I talked about and was willing to share their learning with the community. And so the conference has been a combination of outreach by me to people who are known for being AI educators. I've had a lot of help from people making introductions, saying, you need to talk to this person about this topic. That would be a fabulous thing. And then obviously there was a CFP. I put it out there. I said, does anybody want to talk about this conference? And on the CFP, I specifically said, this is a conference where we have no expectation of your experience level or fluency with AI. What is the new terminology that you're going to introduce to the audience as part of this talk? That was part of the process, because it makes people who are maybe more familiar with the subject stop and pause and think, how do I communicate this to an audience that is new to the topic? And so by doing those little things and doing things a little bit differently to how I do at DevOps Days London, I hope the sentiment of the conference comes through in all of the content, all of the talks from the speakers, because that's been my request from day one. Through every different channel, I've saw speakers through it. It's like, can you make this content accessible to everyone? Can you explain all of this terminology as you're talking them through it? And so there should be absolutely no prior knowledge required. That is my goal. Well, it remains to be seen whether I succeed, but that is the goal.
I think you're going to.
I truly appreciate that you're putting on this conference and that it's not specific to a particular technology or a particular vendor. And it's really open and inviting to everyone who's curious about AI, because I've gone to a few other technical conferences this year and all of them have been overwhelmed by AI. Like 80% of the talks have been around AI, but because they tend to be vendored presentations, it's all about how this vendor's doing AI and how you can use their tool. I walk away with so many unanswered questions like, is that actually the best way to do it? Is that a useful use of my time? Will that make me in any way more efficient? So I'm excited that your conference is going to get closer to answering some of my more nagging questions and not just like, here's our cool new product and it does XYZ.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I don't enjoy events like that either. If I feel like I'm being sold to, even if it's with some preamble of thought leadership, then I kind of switch off. I'm like, I came here to learn. So yeah, I think there's a time and a place for those demos, but it's not the talks of the conference. Like, go and visit their booth, go and get the demo, go to a webinar. I appreciate, like, everyone's got to be selling all the time. But this is a conference that's very focused on delegate experience and what you as an individual will take away from it.
Is the conference in person only, or is there a virtual option for those who can't make it to London?
I have a bias here because one of the things that I always remember and I take away, and the things that have the biggest impact on me, is kind of the networking and the conversations you have, and it's the people you meet at a conference. And I failed to reproduce that with a virtual event. It's really hard. Like, I attended and I spoke at many conferences during COVID days that were virtual, and it just didn't have the same impact on me. Like, I can absolutely say that, like, the DevOps Days community and all of the conferences I've been to as a speaker and attendee over the years, like, there are things that I take away from most of them. But the thing that lasts is the connections and the people and the conversations that you have. And I think if you're trying to build community, which is what I'm trying to do, we're trying to build a community of people who are learning together. There's no substitute for an in-person event.
Maximize cloud efficiency with Doit, the trusted partner in multi-cloud management for thousands of companies worldwide. Doit's innovative tools, expert insights, and smart technology make optimization simple. Elevate your cloud strategy and simplify your cloud spend. Visit doit.com. That's DOIT.com. Doit, your cloud simplified.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Having gone to many conferences over the years and tried to attend them virtually, for whatever reason, I can't stay focused on the virtual events. I have to be there in person and physically present. And also, like you said, just the conversations and the people you meet, that's the thing that actually lasts on an ongoing basis.
I would not be able to do what I'm doing without the support of the folks in my network who, for the most part, I have met at conferences. I have got to know them in the hallway track, over lunch, over beers afterwards, and with that network of people who are willing to open doors for me, willing to teach me and steer me in the right direction with this event. It just simply wouldn't be possible without that. And so I hope that this will be the start of a thriving community where we can all learn about this together.
And it's also just so much different in terms of getting energized when you're surrounded by people that care so much about the same things you care about. That is unrivaled.
So DevOps Days, because you run the DevOps Days London, but DevOps Days is everywhere. It's a conference that has so many different locations. I recently went to one in Philadelphia and it was awesome. I mean, this is the first time you're putting this on. So, you probably want to see how this goes first. But is there any idea of perhaps rerunning this conference in other locations across the globe for those who do want to attend in person?
Yes. So wildly ambitious, Hannah. was like, you know what, we'll do London autumn 2024. And then in 2025, we'll do New York and Berlin. And then we'll go to Seattle. And I was like, I had this whole plan. Honestly, I don't think I have permission to do that plan yet. This conference needs to happen and it needs to be a success. And if I get that validation, then absolutely, like, I'll do it again. But at the moment, I can't get just distracted by what I may or may not do next year. This first event has to be a success before I have permission to even think about that.
Absolutely. That's what I thought. But I do love the idea of being able to attend this. If you do put it on in New York, I would definitely make the trip. It's not even that far. It's like a quick train ride for me.
Yeah, I don't think I could justify the like London trip from the middle America, United States, but I could for sure come to New York.
Okay, well, I will let you know. You'll be first on my list. It's happening.
Awesome.
I love it.
I was looking at the website a little bit earlier today, and I saw some really interesting speakers that you have coming to the conference. Are there any specific sessions or topics that you're most excited about watching and being a part of?
Oh my gosh, now you're putting me on, because I can't play favorites with my speakers, can I?
Which of your speakers is the absolute favorite?
No, I won't do it. I won't do it. All I can do is I can talk about what a person like me would probably do at the conference, because I have an engineering leadership and a product leadership background, but product leadership in a dev tools sort of context. And so I think what I would be doing is, obviously it's single track in the morning. So you get that grounding in like the terminology. And then on day one, you have to pick between the AI fundamentals, which is for folks who want to understand a little bit more about the variety of AI models that are out there, what these words actually mean, and sort of get to the next level of detail about actually how the technology works. There are a couple of talks in there that I would be really curious about. And one is by Lisa Becker, and she is talking about what model is the right model for your problem. So instead of LLM washing, like, LLM is the answer, what's the question? She's talking about, actually, there's a lot more to like machine learning and AI than LLMs. And she's going to lay out the landscape and give us a really simple and easy to understand guide of which model you pick in which scenario, which I think, it may not be applicable to you today, but I can imagine that being applicable to you in the context of product development, in the context of engineering leadership, when everybody wants to pick up Llama or Mistral or something like that. It's like, is it actually the right tool for this job? Like, just having a little bit of awareness of the landscape, I think, will be really important. I think what I would do after that is I would hop over to the developer experience track. We've got Matthias Zieger from Digital AI, and he is going to be laying out how AI is transforming the landscape of software development. And I think that's going to be like a high level view of all of the different steps that we go through today, from idea to production code, and how AI is going to change the game in each one of those steps. And so I think for me, that will be a really fascinating talk, because I think it just opens your eyes to the possibilities. I think a lot of engineers are already using co-pilots and things like that to build efficiency in, but software development is a lot more than writing code, and we all know that. So it'd be great to get a big picture on that. I could keep talking. So day two, again, like, this is me, Hannah, like with my background. So day two, we get a bit more actionable about like, okay, what's your AI strategy? And we've got Danny from Mesh AI, and he's going to be talking about AI for product leaders. So again, this is about what problems are the right problems for AI to solve. What could we solve today that we couldn't solve yesterday? And so I think that will be a really fascinating talk. And we also have Mo, who is going to be talking about digital discrimination and bias within AI models. And I think, again, that's a really important topic. And I know Mo will be incredible in her explanation of that. So I think in the responsible AI track, it's all about really making sure that we've got the right guardrails in place around where we're deploying AI, so there's no unintended consequences. And we know that these models, they sort of codify all of the flaws in humanity. They codify our biases and our inequality and things like that. And so, like, we need to actively push against that. We need to put things in place to make sure that we are not codifying the inequality in our society.
I want to go to all those talks.
Yes.
I'm so excited. But provided I cannot get to London, will these talks be recorded? Can I watch them after the fact?
Yes, absolutely. So they will be recorded. They'll be up on YouTube afterwards. What we're also going to do is we're going to summarize every talk. So I think there's so much goodness that comes out of events like these that gets lost, because who sits at home and watches 2 days worth of content of conference recordings? So we'll be providing summaries and takeaways of every talk as well. I want to make the content as accessible as possible because, again, this is the stuff that I was looking for earlier this year and I couldn't find. So I really hope that this community becomes like a hub where not just the content from the conference gets shared, but where we can share all of these good examples of easy to understand explainers of like how to get to grips and how to speak the language that we need to work with these systems.
I have loved every part of this podcast with you. I'm so excited to go learn about AI in my personal career path. This is so exciting. So for our listeners at home who are also excited, where can they learn more about this conference and more about you?
So the website has the full agenda. So it's aifortherestofus.live. If you Google AI for the rest of us, we show up now, which is fantastic. The search engines are doing their thing. You can also find me on the internet. Luckily, I have a really Googleable name. So my name is Hannah Foxwell. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I've started doing some writing for the New Stack, so you can find me on there. The site formerly known as Twitter, I shall never call it X.
Nope.
I'm on there, but I'm not active anymore. So really, if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn is probably the best place at the moment.
And I see a note here that you maybe have a discount code for listeners at home.
Oh, so yes, absolutely. So if you're listening to this and you're in the UK, you're in London, or you're up for a bit of travel and you think this sounds like a worthwhile event, then I would love to see you there. And I'm really happy to offer a discount to anybody listening to this podcast of 25% off the ticket price. So ticket prices are normally £440. With this discount, they would be £330. And I've tried to pitch it at this level so it's accessible to as many people in tech as possible. I see conferences where it's in like many, many thousands, the ticket price. And I'm like, it just excludes a huge number of people when you put the ticket prices so high. So I've tried to keep the ticket prices at a manageable level for folks like us in tech. And the discount code you need, the important bit of information, is Day 2 DevOps. That's the number 2. Day 2 DevOps. If you put that into the ticketing site, you'll get your 25% discount on your ticket.
That's in all caps. And thank you so much for that discount code. So folks, if you go, please tag us on LinkedIn or maybe the site formerly known as Twitter, if any of us are still there. We would love to see your pictures and maybe send you some swag, hopefully. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been lovely to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Virtual high fives to all of our listeners at home for tuning in. If you have suggestions for future shows, we would love to hear them. You can use the feedback form at packetpushers.net/follow-up or /FU. You can find me, Kyler Middleton, blogging over on letsdodevops.com and my stupendous co-host, Ned Bellavance at nedinthecloud.com. We're both very active on LinkedIn, very, very active. Stop by and say hello. If you're a vendor with a way cool product you want to share with our audience of IT professionals, become a Day 2 DevOps sponsor. You'll reach several thousand nerdy practitioners, all of whom have problems to solve. Maybe your product fixes their problem, but they'll never know unless you tell them about your amazing solution. Find out more at packetpushers.net/sponsorship. Until next time, just remember that doing DevOps and AI is awesome, and so are you.